Alright everybody, how we doing today? So, apparently the Venezuela situation may soon be coming to a climax. As according to this article from Reuters, disappointed Venezuelans lose patience with Guaido as Maduro hangs on. As according to the article, 4 days before Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido launched a military uprising in a bid to oust President Nicolas Maduro, he told supporters at a rally outside the capital in Caracas, "In the next few days, we'll decide our destiny." The 35-year-old, who had risen to national prominence 3 months before, finished his speech with his usual rallying cry to Venezuelans desperate for the end of 20 years of socialist rule: "We're on track." Yet after the April 30th insurrection swiftly unraveled, with troops remaining in their barracks and key government officials refusing to change sides, many Venezuelans aren't so sure. Interviews with more than 24 people across Venezuela, as well as fresh polling data, suggest that many people have grown frustrated by the slow pace of change amid the hardships of daily life. Several said they were losing hope that Guaido could dislodge Maduro. "We're on track, but it's the wrong track," said Rafael Narvaez, a taxi driver in the western coastal city of Punto Fijo. Oh, maybe they can put Rafael Narvaez in charge of the country. I mean, they put a bus driver in charge of the country, so maybe a taxi driver will be just as good, if not better. Narvaez said he had been full of hope on April 30th when he saw Guaido appear with military officers in a video post on Twitter saying it was time to rise up against Maduro. "I thought that finally the moment had come to recover our country," Narvaez, 43, said. "Now I'm disappointed." Yeah, aren't we all? Analysts said the most likely outcome now is for the status quo to continue as Maduro gains confidence that his crackdown on the opposition will go relatively unpunished, and Guaido seeks a new strategy to keep a weary public energized. When Guaido, the Speaker of National Assembly in January, proclaimed a rival presidency and a bold challenge to Maduro, he injected new hope into Venezuela's fragmented opposition, with most Western nations saying Maduro's re-election last year was rigged. Citation needed. Guaido cited the Constitution to announce an interim presidency until fresh elections could be held. Washington backed him and imposed tough new sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry, with the aim of forcing Maduro and his allies from power. Of course they did. That's Trump's foreign policy now. Sanction this, tariff that, harass them, harass them, harass them. Maduro, who took office in 2013 following the death of his political mentor, Hugo Chavez, has overseen an economic collapse that has left swaths of the once wealthy country without reliable access to power, water, food, and medicines. More than 4 million Venezuelans have immigrated, and the Organization of American States warned this week that that figure could double by the end of the next year. And that's emigrated, by the way. Immigrate and emigrate. I know, it's really easy to confuse the pronunciation of those two, especially since I'm from Western Washington. And I've noticed that people from Western Washington, we tend to slur a little bit on our vowels. We slur our vowels a little. Guaido has gained control of some Venezuelan assets in the United States, appointed diplomats overseas, and unveiled an economic plan to rebuild Venezuela, but his promise of amnesty have failed to sway the armed forces, which remain loyal to Maduro. Since the April 30th uprising, the opposition's momentum has slowed. Attendance at Guaido's public rallies has dropped, and the opposition has held no major protests since then. A march called for Friday will be a litmus test for Guaido's support. Maduro, who retains the loyalty of key allies Russia and China, has branded Guaido a U.S. puppet. And the thing is, I know people think that it's not possible just because he happens to also be a socialist, but don't forget that there are socialists in the United States itself. That doesn't matter. He could be a U.S. puppet, designed specifically to destabilize the Venezuelan situation so we can access Venezuelan oil without having to pay. It's exactly something our country would do. It's classic U.S. foreign policy. ever since the George Bush era. Hell, even before that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why people think it's such a ridiculous idea just because, oh, he's a socialist. Again, there's socialists in this country. Bernie Sanders, he could totally be a U.S. puppet. But until it can be proven, citation needed. But I just wanted to go on that little tangent for a moment. With a swift removal of Maduro not in sight, the opposition said it is knuckling down for a more protracted campaign and seeking to build a grassroots organization to press for elections without Maduro. Jan Goicoechea, 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 I think I'll say Goicoechea, a member of Guaido's policy team, acknowledged there was fatigue among Venezuelans. We have to fight against demobilization and despair, he said. We Venezuelans have to keep consistent in our support for Guaido and be patient. Trump apparently silent. To maintain momentum, Goicoechea said Guaido had traveled to 11 of Venezuela's 23 states and will travel to at least 5 more this month to motivate his supporters. Goicoechea said Guaido was focused on expanding a network of help and freedom. Committees, a program that opposition began in April to organize efforts at a local level, something the ruling Socialist Party has done successfully. Excuse me. However, attendees say so far the committee have got little traction. Rafael Mora, a 27-year-old doctor and Guaido supporter in the northwestern city of Barquisimeto, said too many Venezuelans wanted immediate change without being willing to work for it. We can't leave all the responsibility just in the hands of a leader, a messiah, said Mora, who met Guaido when he visited in late May. This guy makes sense. Of course you can't affect change in a swift, instant action like that. This guy is probably the only person in this situation that's actually talking sense. Support for Guaido remains high, but it has dipped slightly from 61.2% in February to 56.7% in May. According to a June 10th report from Venezuela and pollster data analysis, just 10.1% of Venezuelans approved of Maduro in May, the lowest level for a president since 1999, according to the survey. Meanwhile, a survey from pollster Datencorp showed the proportion of Venezuelans who recognized Guaido as a legitimate president had fallen from 49% in February to 36% in June. Raul Gallegos, associate director with consultancy Control Risks, said their base case scenario was for Maduro. Base? Don't you mean best? But anyway, it was for Maduro to still be in power by the end of the year, and for the opposition to lose steam. It did not appear that Guaido had a plan B to dislodge Maduro, Gallegos said. We can expect Guaido's popularity to continue to erode the longer he is not exercising power. Venezuelans also dropped down the list of U.S. President Donald Trump's foreign policy priorities, as his administration deals with tension with Iran and trade talks with China. Not to mention the North Korean situation, where they will be finally having their third summit. When Trump launched his re-election campaign in Orlando, Florida on June 18th, he made no mention of Venezuela through aides and insisted he remains committed to Guaido. Since the April uprising, Maduro's government has cracked down on Guaido's allies without significant retaliation from the international community. The Supreme Court has accused 14 opposition lawmakers of crimes including treason and conspiracy, prompting most to flee abroad or take refuge in foreign embassies in Caracas. Some ordinary Venezuelans interviewed by Reuters criticized Guaido's decision to send envoys to Oslo for talks with representatives of Maduro's government. All the way to Norway, huh? I'm assuming they mean Oslo, Norway, unless there's some other place called Oslo. Instead, they demanded that Guaido shift strategy and request a U.S.-led military intervention, a possibility that Washington has repeatedly played down. We can't get rid of Maduro with votes. It will have to be a violent exit, said Juan Parra, a 67-year-old teacher in the Indian city of Merida, while he waited to see Guaido speak. While the most desired outcome for Venezuelans in the data analysis poll was negotiations leading to presidential elections this year. Preference for a U.S.-led military invasion rose from 9.4% in April to 11.9% in May. For many Venezuelans, change is just too slow in coming, and tens of thousands are leaving the country every week. I bet that Guaido would change our country, Andrea Milea, a 22-year-old former police student, told Reuters as she waited at a border checkpoint to enter Peru. But given that it is all talk and there is no organization, it's too hard just to stay there. It's not easy being a Venezuelan. It'd be even worse if Trump decided to tariff or sanction them over something. That'd be even worse. Yeah, this is probably the first time I've actually seen a photo of Juan Guaido. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird, but he actually kind of looks like Obama. Ugh. But yeah, I don't really think either of these guys would be good news for Venezuela, since they're socialists. And if you understand economic theory and the history of socialism, it's a raw deal. Socialism is always a raw deal. But I suppose at this point it would be better Guaido than Maduro, as Maduro has proven himself to be something of a tyrant. I suppose he's driving the country the way he used to drive a bus, eh? But seriously though, the fact that Trump is now no longer focusing on Venezuela shows one of two things, in my opinion. It either shows A, it really isn't as important as it seems, at least not for us, and B, the other thing it might show is that he's more focused on the Middle East and Asia than he is on this. Because he doesn't consider this to be as important as Iran or Korea. Which, from a certain point of view, that would certainly seem to be true. Just like Obi-Wan told you, I guess. But really, though, ignoring it completely would just be stupid. Preferably in Trump's situation, I wouldn't meddle with it at all, but I'd keep a close eye just in case. Because Venezuela is close enough to the United States that anything that's happened there is going to affect us. If even only in a very small way, it's still going to have an effect. Taking that into consideration, the Venezuelan situation should be monitored, but not meddled with. Just closely watched. So if anything happens that could affect the United States, we'll be ready for it, because we'll know it's happening. But as far as I'm concerned, either way, Venezuela's fucked. This is not going to have a positive outcome either way. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm just too far gone into my conservative/libertarian ideals. Anyway,